I'm just thinking, I was thinking about turning off the TV
No.
while we were actually recording this discussion. But it's sitting on the DVD, or I should say Blu-ray menu for Mission Impossible 2, and it's just a still of Tom Cruise's face, a bad gif of fire next to him, and then doves flying past him.
The fire and the doves are at different frame rates.
I think this is my new Yule log. I'm gonna have to capture this and put it on screen now.
Exactly.
This is brilliant.
Whenever you're doing anything for Christmas over here, you just have this on in the background.
You remember that if anything goes wrong in your life, Ethan Hunt and the Mission Impossible Mission Force will be along to help you out. Because today we watched not one movie, but two movies. We watched Mission Impossible 1 and 2. Because I think it's really funny to shotgun these movies.
Yeah, no, it was.
Yeah.
It was.
They're very fun movies for very different reasons.
Yep, for sure.
It's like one is a good movie and one's a good movie.
I think for the most part, a big part of the appeal to this franchise to me, and I'll get into it in a minute, is that they keep swapping around directors and they all feel a little different until the last couple, which were all Christopher McQuarrie joints. Even though they do feel distinct, I still wouldn't necessarily back to back them, because you start to they start to lose impact.
Yeah.
I think that watching these two right next to each other makes both of them much better.
Well, it's like they're kind of different genres of movies.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like the first one is it's like a spy heist movie, and this one is just like a dumb action movie.
Well, I was gonna say so. One of my complaints about Mission Impossible 2 is it's a dumb action movie where there is no action until the end
later.
of the second act.
But they also don't do heisting hardly either.
No, they don't. It's
the one heist sequence, and it's he does a cool thing in it, but it's it didn't feel. In the first movie, even though they didn't reveal to us exactly what was going to happen, what the plan was completely, we had an idea, a rough overview of it. It's this is the facility and this is how we're going to do this. These are the tools available. In the second one, when we finally do get to the heist thing, it's here's the building. This is the shaft. Go.
Yeah.
Fall through the thing. Do the stunt, Ethan.
Do the thing. Do the thing that if he would have been 1 second too late, you would have just pancaked.
You look at Tom Cruise and you say, just jump out of the helicopter jumper.
Yep.
We haven't really done, dedicated movie discussions on the show before, aside from Joey and I doing Advent Children. But very often when you guys are over to record stuff, we wind up watching a movie or two. No, we wouldn't have time to then talk about the movie because we're usually turning around to film an LP. Mm-hmm. But I'm sitting on a finished Final Fantasy VII Remake playthrough, in terms of taping it at least. I'm sitting on a finished Uncharted 4 playthrough in terms of... Well, actually, I can't even say in terms of taping it, because I got multiple episodes that need to be replaced. But the point is, we're still hanging out. We're still having fun. I thought, why not record a couple of things? Mm-hmm. And I don't know why I wanted to start with this, really, because these aren't high cinema.
This was fun because it was fun. It's a good time with your friends.
It is. And this is, I think, at least the first movie, I feel like that's the golden standard of what a competent movie should be.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I agree.
It's it may not be winning any awards, but it's it was well done the whole time.
Yep.
And it was I was on the edge of my seat. Yeah, you were stressed. Which is a good sign.
That was something, again, that's part of what the contrast is between these two. Because for anybody who doesn't know, the Mission Impossible series, headlined by Tom Cruise throughout, and I'm going to talk about his involvement in this a little bit, because he's not just the star, he is the lead producer on all of these. He's got the power and the clout to make the wheels spin on this thing. He's the only reason the first one got made. Mm-hmm. He launched J.J. Abrams' career as a director because he hired J.J. Abrams, who had previously only done TV, to direct Mission Impossible 3.
Okay.
Specifically because Tom Cruise was a big fan of Alias.
Okay.
Presumably Tom Cruise also a big fan of John Woo. I guess he hadn't seen Face Off yet, or was Face Off after this? Because this is after John Woo was making a big name for himself, making Hong Kong movies.
I feel like Face Off was a 90.
I'm gonna check.
Maybe
in
the
that.
90s. This was 2000, right?
Yeah, this is the year 2000. Just in time for that airplane scene.
Yeah.
Face Off was 97. Okay,
yeah, I think so. So that was a year after the first movie?
Yeah, exactly. But you get a lot of distinct directorial visions throughout this franchise, though this is the most distinct split, because we've got Brian De Palma, who is, I'm not super familiar with this filmmaking, though I've gone through, I did recently watch something else, kind of like to prep myself a little more to talk about him.
Okay.
And he tends to do crime films, paranoia films, suspense films. Like it is very much like
So yeah, everything that the first movie
Yep.
was.
it's seedy and sweaty and stressful. Whereas John Woo makes people flip around and shoot guns 700 times. And one thing that stands out about this is that you've got a lot of his I guess you would say his other directorial flourishes, like the weird flirting car chase where they spin around. Like that feels very like that's what you were talking about, Aiden. Like, you know, oh, that was now they're in love. It's like yes, of course they're in love. Did you watch that scene? How can you not be in love with someone?
She's an
after
expert
that?
thief and he's a spy. How much more simple and plain can we make this?
How much more like cinematic
She was
energy?
a girl and he was a boy.
How much more
Can I make it
cinematic
any more
energy can we put
obvious?
into this to get these guys together? But I think Mission Impossible 2 is enjoyable.
It's very enjoyable.
Oh, for sure.
But he's not. But the fact that like we were watching this, and when Tom Cruise does his first flip to like drop kick a guy who he disabled, which is like the beginning of the final action sequence.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first time he's really done a flip, and you're like, whoa! And it's like he feels like he should have been doing that the whole movie.
Yeah.
Why wasn't he flipping around constantly?
We had to build up to it.
He had to earn it. You had to
Build
earn.
up to
You had
it.
to
And it
earn
wasn't
the flips.
just a flip; it was a real flip. It was like a disarm and then kick all in one.
I was
He
gonna
used
say
both
it
feet.
was an ending of a string in a fighting game.
Exactly.
Like it was a really committed flipping downward kick onto the guy.
Yeah, and I mean, and this is an extremely cold take, but it's like, man, yeah, Tom Cruise though, what a dude, what an actor.
There's
when it comes to like the actual performance of stunts.
Yeah, this is, and he just gets crazier as these movies are going on.
Yeah.
I don't think he's
Crazier than that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, jeez.
Absolutely. I mean, no, it's in terms of style, not necessarily. This
Okay.
is everything you can make an argument in terms of like presentational style is reeling back from MI2.
Okay.
He's not doing gun katas and flips around. They didn't really do any gun katas in this, I suppose. But he's not doing flipping around CQC stuff so much later on. I just
Okay.
mean the stunt work demands that he is carrying out get crazier and crazier.
I see.
They change from this. They shift from this to Tom is gonna dangle off of something moving very fast, or Tom is gonna lean really. There's a take that
and we
is-
didn't do that with a bullet train and a helicopter?
There is a take in Rogue Nation, I think, which is the fifth one of these, where there's a motorcycle chase, and there's a take that they left in the movie where, you know, when you're really leaning into a turn on a motorcycle that's going really, really fast, I mean, you're really, really leaning over on that thing, and his knee hits the ground. It's like, pulls back up, but keeps going at 90 miles per hour or whatever the hell he was
no.
doing. Yeah. It's just, leave that in the movie. That's good. I forgot. There's a shot in Fallout where he broke his ankle and filming had to stop for like a month and a half. But they used the take where he broke his ankle
Sick.
and where he gets up and stumbles away from the jump because it looks real. It looks like he really fought for that jump.
That's like him doing the jump from the cliffs, where like we were talking about him doing that straight leg, like just landing. Like that hurt me physically.
Yeah, so I guess we'll talk about a couple like the iconic sequences first, because I think it's interesting what between these movies like stands out as like the thing people remember. Because you would think the John Woo movie would have like the crazier visual that everyone remembers, but actually, as Spencer was commenting, he's like, wait a second, I think I may have seen this movie once decades ago, because he saw the helicopter getting hooked onto the train that was about to go into a tunnel. And that feels, I don't know about you guys, you just watched this movie for the first time. For me, I've seen this movie several times before. Okay, did the helicopter going into the tunnel feel like an insane move for that film?
It did, because it wouldn't have been for the second movie.
No, agreed.
But it's like the first one, it's not that it was like the first movie felt really grounded.
Yeah.
in its way.
In its own way.
yeah.
Well, yeah, of course, in its own spy way. But I mean, he wasn't doing extreme stuff. There wasn't shootouts, like not really.
No, I was gonna say there are 3 bullets fired in that entire movie, and one of them was a blank.
Yeah.
Because the guy, but other than that, no live bullets fired in that film. Other than at the very end of the movie.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, because if you had told me the first movie doesn't really have any shootouts, I would have said, then
What's the movie
Yeah,
about?
then
yeah.
where's the action in the movie?
And it's like, there is action, but
There
it's
sure
like,
is.
it's not the focus of the
The
movie.
action is that guy gonna look up or not?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Is he gonna
Is
catch
his
that
sweat
sweat?
bead gonna fall on the floor?
But I think it's really interesting that like the crazy John Woo movie, I think the strongest sequence in it is the choice of how to introduce Ethan into the second film, which is that rock climbing scene.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a brilliant music choice. It's shot beautifully.
Yeah. Oh,
It's like
gorgeous shot.
just long enough.
Yep.
Sorry.
And then it's
No,
immediately
that's it.
it's immediately preceded by the first thing that made us all laugh, which is the CIA rocket delivery system.
For a pair of
The RPG
magic sunglasses.
Yeah, the RPG magic sunglasses.
So I was talking to you guys about that scene where he is scaling on the side of that cliff. Like, if you go and find, there's not a ton of behind the scenes photography of it, but it's because it wasn't exactly in the easiest to shoot location.
Right.
And they weren't going to get a second helicopter to do behind the scenes. But you can tell that helicopter got pretty close in some of those shots, but like it couldn't get too close because it's a massive rock face here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they did have another operator down there like on wires next to crews on wires for some of the closer stuff, but like you can't have there's like no second unit for bonus footage. All the behind the scenes stuff is the crew on the top of the cliff and like a couple of askew like cameras looking over the cliff down at them.
Yeah, because they had like 2 or 3 shots of that.
Yeah, so I really tried to figure out, like, because I was really trying to figure out when he jumps from one cliff to another cliff.
Yeah.
Did he do that, or was that on a stage and composited? And I couldn't find any footage of it that wasn't the footage used in the movie, which is a camera that's above him and then a wide from the helicopter. I don't think there exists any other documented footage of him making that jump. I think he may have actually done it.
That's crazy.
I don't know.
That's crazy.
He's dedicated, if nothing else.
And that is the kind of the beginning of Mission Impossible as a franchise that's basically a one-man piece of performance art.
Yep.
But sorry, I guess we should go about this in a little bit of order.
Okay.
I guess we should talk about the first film.
Okay.
Aiden,
Sure.
I want you to explain what happened in Mission Impossible 1. Explain the plot to me. You have 60 seconds.
Oh shit. Okay. So they are on an operation that goes bad. They've been set up. They were on a mole hunt. The whole team was supposed to die, and then they didn't, which means that obviously Ethan Hunt is guilty. And now he has to prove that he's not guilty by actually doing the crime that they were trying to stop and catching the real bad guy.
He has to steal the Declaration of Independence.
Yes.
This is the original Declaration of Independence plot. I'm biting into your time.
That's
Continue.
fine. So yeah, he does the thing. He steals the thing. He has to get even worse guys, disavowed guys, to help him steal the thing. And he does, and they catch the real bad guy, who we thought was the good guy, but was the real bad guy. And he kills his wife in a train.
Whoa, Ethan kills his wife?
No, the bad guy kills
okay.
his
All right,
wife
here we
in
go.
a train, but he doesn't get away with it because the good bad guy is there to catch them all and save the day.
Wow, you nailed that. You got that in under 60 seconds. That was
Okay.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Joey, I want you to explain the plot of Mission Impossible 2. You have 10 seconds.
I said John Cruise. Tom Cruise he's got to shoot people to get the super COVID vaccine.
Yay! Okay, no, sorry, back to Mission Impossible 1, because it's got a bit of a reputation for being confusing. So I want to ask you about that, because I didn't say anything beforehand. I didn't want to prime you. What did you think watching the film?
So yeah, I think the biggest thing was when they were trying to tell you. Okay, so like the sequence where we meet Jim in the cafe again, and he's like,
Oh yeah, spoilers for this, 25-year-old movie, by the way.
"Oh yeah, yeah, big."
This is almost a 30-year-old movie.
Don't
Actually,
watch the discussion
God,
if you
it
have
is.
not seen the movie.
this is not a movie to. I mean, I guess I don't know. The first one is the only one in this where you could make an argument you're watching it for the plot, but I would say even there, you're like this is an entire franchise about filmmaking craft.
Yeah,
more
yeah,
so
yeah.
than it is about
For sure.
the storylines.
Like this
But
is for
continue.
the fun of watching the movie.
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of
'cause-
getting the plot discussion out of the way up front.
Yeah. So when he meets Jim in the cafe and he's reasoning through like how Kissinger, is that the guy's name? What's the guy's name?
Kissinger is the name of this, like the IMF or CIA handler.
So so he's trying to be like, this is how Kissinger killed everybody, and you're seeing it through Tom Cruise mentally thinking through it, and it's not Kissinger killing people, it's Jim.
Yeah.
I was like, is that for our benefit as the audience to see that it wasn't Kissinger, it was Jim?
Or is that Tom Cruise?
Or
in
is
his
that
brain?
Tom
Right.
Cruise thinking through it? And there were a couple other instances of that, of like, is this something that Tom Cruise knows, or is this for the benefit of the audience?
Yeah, that's one thing I was like, what are they trying to do here? But then
Yeah.
I was like, so far Tom Cruise has been smart, so he has figured this out.
And that was the thing, is then immediately after that, where you're like, was that for my benefit or his? Then he's like, the wife is weird. And I'm like, okay, so he knows.
Yeah.
He knows. And there were just a couple things like that where it's like, did I perceive that correctly? Because I'm not used to being spoon-fed, I guess. I'm
Sure.
suspicious of being spoon-fed.
Sure,
I feel
I
like if I'm
understand.
being spoon-fed, you're lying
I was
to
gonna
me.
say, I don't think the movie is confusing. I mean, that part is confusing. Overall, I don't think it's confusing, but I can understand if you're going into Mission Impossible 1 expecting Mission Impossible 2 and you're only tangentially paying attention. Like, if you're not watching it in theaters, if it's on TV and you're just half paying attention
Catching half
to
the
this
dialogue.
action movie, then you might get to a point later on where you're like, wait, what
Yeah, for
what's he
sure.
doing? I thought he was dead.
Yeah.
But it's like, if you're actually giving the movie the respect it deserves, it's not confusing. It explains itself pretty well.
Yeah, I was watching it this time because I hadn't watched it in a couple of years. I was going, no, actually, this is actually fairly legible, I think. And I was really keyed into like how many hints do they drop about what's happening, and I was impressed by how many actually little things there were throughout
The
it.
knife shot was crazy.
Yeah.
That reveal was like, oh my god!
I can't believe he killed that rat.
That was so cruel of him. Why did he kill that rat like that? It was so mean.
It's almost like he's a ne'er-do-well.
I was about to say it's almost like he's French, but I'm playing into tropes there when I say that. But I have to say there's a Frenchman in this movie, and there people in the comments would be disappointed if I didn't say something.
That's true.
But yeah, no. So it's I do think it's interesting because Brian De Palma, who directed the first movie, is very much, I would say, I don't know. I want to call him a highbrow filmmaker because people would say he's actually like he makes exploitation schlock on a big budget, which isn't necessarily fair. He's a guy who enjoys exploitation schlock. Like Carrie is like a real story. For example, he did the original feature length adaptation. I don't think there's no short. He did the original feature adaptation of Stephen King's Carrie, which is like, like a serious horror novel, but also like a lot of Stephen King stuff. It is kind of exploitative. This is a movie about a girl getting blood dumped all over her, and then she goes on a massive revenge killing spree. Like, it feeds into normal horror tropes.
Sure.
And Brian De Palma likes himself a booby or two.
Okay.
He likes, so the movie that I watched adjacent to this a week or two ago, I watched a movie called Blowout. Starring John Travolta, which was also fantastic and probably more worthy of a discussion than these two movies.
But it's just one movie, and this is two.
Exactly.
This is true. It's a double feature. But Blowout, John Travolta's character is a sound engineer for a like bad schlock B-movie horror house. The opening of the movie is like a fake out where you're watching a bad slasher film called Co-Ed Frenzy.
Oh.
Nice.
Which is...
That's something we'd watch on movie night.
That is something where, like, Joey, you would love this scene, because I imagine, like, a normal person watching this and being like, what? Huh? But if you're, like, if you understand that it's a joke and you're keyed in and you know what it's a joke about, it's insane. Like, it's a first-person shot of a slasher outside of a dorm, and he's looking in through a window on two girls, like, dancing in their dorm room, and they're like, topless or wearing stuff that's so thin that it's might as well be topless. Then he looks into another window where a woman is having sex, riding, but on top so you can see her boobs. And she gets like, oh no, I thought I saw somebody, and runs up to the window so we can get a really good look at her.
Of course.
And then like it keeps escalating. Like eventually the killer is inside of the dorm, and he like briefly ducks into one room to hide, and there's a girl in the room, but she doesn't see him because her eyes are closed and she's masturbating.
Oh my god. That's wrong.
That's what I'm saying, right? Is like this
Yeah.
is like if you know, you're like this is so funny, but if you don't, you're like, what is this trash? And there's like Blowout is like a pretty serious, dark movie. It's pretty bleak, but it's got more than just those scenes. It's got some stuff that is definitely like falls into exploitation junk. But it's there almost like to add like grime to a really serious movie than it is for cheap thrills or titillation. But sorry, I say that the reason I bring that up is because this is a guy who makes, I would say, Carrie, Scarface, Blowout, a bunch of other stuff. His career hasn't done so well in the 2000s, as I understand it. I know very little about the movies that he made after that. But this is a guy who makes films, and this is, as far as I know, the first time that he was like attached to a major studio production. And so it's just really interesting watching something that I'm sure he didn't have a lot to do with the script, but he is absolutely putting his like authorial touch on. Like I talked about something that he does in Blowout a bunch is these like split focus shots where they're like, they have something right in the foreground that's in focus and something in deep background on like, the left or right side of the screen that's also in focus. And there's not a ton of those in MI1, but I did clock them. I was looking for them. A lot of Dutch angles, but tastefully used. Like they're not constant. It's not just constantly tilting the camera for no reason.
Not enough that I like picked up on it. I didn't recognize it.
I
when a
clocked
movie is
the
being
split
obnoxious
focus.
with it, it's like we'll be watching some movies on movie night where it's just like constantly, bang, 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 and it's like, okay, all right, I've seen enough.
When I think about the cinematography of MI1, the shots that like first jump to mind are when he is with Kittredge in like that seafood restaurant, and there are two shots from like directly below them, and both of them are tilted at like opposing angles from like so those are kind of Dutch angles. But I also think of, for whatever reason, I think it's more to do with his performance than it is with the shot. But like a really flat shot when he wakes up in the safe house and what's her face has come back. He like grabs her and whips her around, points a gun at her, whips back and checks the door, whips back to her, and that's like flat wide coverage because it's about
The movement.
yeah, it's about the movement and what's going on. Like it doesn't need to be showy, I guess is my point. I don't know. I think it's just a very interesting. It's a very well put together movie. You made a comment, Aidan, about something about like tracking shots on people's like hands doing things.
Yeah. So there was one. I think it was maybe like one of the very first shots on the plane when he's like putting the tape into the thing, and then the camera follows his fingers up to his face for like a listening posture, and then they did it one or two more times. And those just like felt very stylized to me, like the slow pan with the fingers to the face to do that multiple times.
Especially
I was
when
like,
the movie
that was an
basically starts
intentional,
with it.
yeah, like that's an intentional stylistic choice that you made to put in this movie.
But it's also, I think, one of the reasons they linger on a lot of those little details of procedure is like because there isn't a ton happening, like you do need time because this is like a simmering movie.
Yeah,
There's not a lot actively happening here, so you need to like the audience to feel on pins and needles like something is about to happen.
It's like I'm imagining this exact scene in Less Competent Hands where it's just a still shot of she hands him the thing and he puts the thing up and closes it and then he grabs the monitor. It's the same stuff that's happening, but without flair, it becomes boring.
Yeah.
With the flair that's in there, you're interested in like, okay, what's this all about?
And there's also, I know like one other thing that stood out to me because this is how Blow Up opens with a first person Steadicam shot for that fake exploitation movie, and I was thinking about there's a lot of first person shots in this. They're meant to communicate when they have the glasses on, like the camera view, but like like a decent chunk of the beginning of the embassy scene is all shot in first person.
Yeah. And like you don't see his like fake senator mask for a minute until you see it from somebody else's glasses point of view.
Yeah, and there's a couple of other times in the movie that they do that. So that kind of like I was like, oh, that's again just because I was just watching another movie by this guy that just leapt out at me. I guess we leapt into this so fast. I guess we are obviously. I think it's pretty clear that we enjoyed both of these movies.
Yes.
We said good movie and good
Yes, I
movie
had a great
quotation
time
marks.
with both for very
Agreed.
different reasons.
I want to talk about because I was really curious watching this because like I said, I just watched a much more serious, intense Brian De Palma thriller. So I was wondering how much this was going to hold up to me. I'm watching a studio picture. I'm watching like kind of a somewhat schlocky spy movie, and I was kind of surprised, especially throughout that entire opening embassy sequence, and the subsequent everything goes wrong, how tense it was. I wanted to ask you, Aidan, because you're a scaredy cat and this stuff gets to you. I wanted to ask how this movie was for you, just like on like a raw minute to minute, like just connection level.
So like the beginning was tense for sure. But I think the tensest part is absolutely like in the vault, like because it's silent.
Yes.
Because everyone is holding their breath going, oh my God, does this go off or not? Like that, not having any music, not having any sort of anything in the background there, it just being silent adds so much tension to that sequence.
Yeah, he learned the simple lesson that good horror movies learn, where it's like it's not about having the scary music and the sound cues. It's about having nothing to get
It's
the
about
audience.
every little click and step and broken branch is attracting attention. Or in this case, you're focused on every little detail of physical procedure because there is so little noise.
And like him just hanging there for so long and like nobody moving. Like you can see his grip on the rope slipping, and you're like, he has no further down to go. If he goes down, like we're done.
I was curious because we paused the movie a couple of times, and I was like just thinking about if this was in a theater and you're in it the entire time, like it's hard to you don't get that release that we had gotten multiple times. So I was curious by the time we got to there if like the movie magic had been robbed or not.
Nah, nope.
No, it still was. I mean, it just felt like coming back to another act. It was perfectly fine because it was so intense.
Well, and I think also
Not as
we
intense
kinda,
as anything in Punch Drunk Love, mind you. But
we kind of paused.
We should have done a discussion of that at the time. Doesn't it continue?
We kind of paused like at pauses, I guess is a silly way to word
We
it.
found
but
deep.
like,
we did stop it. We didn't like stop in the middle of Tom Cruise running away from an exploding restaurant or something.
Because I didn't want to pause and pee during running away from an exploding restaurant.
Him getting out of the restaurant, that
shot
shot was so good.
Yeah,
That is,
the
and
fish.
also this is another thing difference between these two movies. Until the helicopter goes into the stupid tunnel, that is the most action that happens in the film.
Yes.
Is a glass tank exploding and some water rushing
That
out.
was the most, like, just only ever hearing about these movies, not watching them. That was the thing that surprised me the most because I was expecting an action movie and I didn't get an action movie until we saw the second one.
I think that's fair. Also, is I very much expected the second one twice. You know what I mean? So when we got to the second one, I was like, it almost felt stranger because the first one wasn't that way at all.
It's like you get these expectations from hearing about this over the years. It's like what I was telling you earlier, how I watched Inglourious Bastards for the first time Friday, and it's like, wow, I thought that movie was going to have a lot more Nazi killing in it just because of the way people have talked about it for a decade, you know? But that's kind of how it felt with this first movie. It's, if anything, it was a pleasant surprise.
Agreed.
You know?
Yeah, no, I
'Cause,
wasn't
we were watching
disappointed
this
to
and
not get.
this is gonna. I don't mean to sound snobby about this. I just don't have the vocabulary. But it's like watching the first movie. I'm like, oh, this is like a real movie.
I was about to say. I was waiting to see if you said those exact words. I was going to ask you, Joey, at what point while we were watching it did your brain like flip a switch and you went, "Oh, this is a real movie"?
I mean, it might have been the restaurant scene, but I was kind of getting that vibe with everything that was happening in the very first operation, and with everything going wrong. Is I was just like, I don't know, something about it, something the way everything was framed and shot. Now it's like I'm seeing things. It's like I'm supposed to be picking up on this. The way that
You realize the movie has a lot of faith in you.
Yes.
It's asking you to just pay attention to what's happening visually, and it's not telling you what's happening.
Exactly.
It's asking you to intuit what they're
So
doing.
I was like, oh, okay. And it was also part of it was your recommendation. It was like, okay, well, Jacob likes this movie, and this movie feels like I'm, like it feels like I can trust this movie. You know what I mean? It was the conversation you and I had years ago where when I started Persona 4, I didn't have like faith in it because it's like I'd heard it was like a good game, but I was like, okay, whatever. I've played good games, I've played.
Persona 4 takes like 7 hours to start. It's not. It's going through it a second time. You're like,
Yes.
all the chess pieces are being put on the board. This is brilliant. The first time you play it, you're like, what's happening?
Yeah, and
Nothing's going on.
and
This
even
is
though it
boring
was
as
like,
hell.
even though it was good, it's like I got to the fake out ending, and like because
I forgot you. That was your first experience with P4 was getting the bad ending and not realizing it was a bad ending.
yeah, and I was just like, yeah, I mean that was good. And then it was like, oh wait, I'm like not even half done. Oh, okay, so this is like a real thing now. So that's kind of what the feeling with this at a much smaller thing.
I feel like I didn't prime you guys too much for this. Unlike when we watched The Fugitive a couple weeks ago, and I was like, this should be just like a movie of the week, but it's like
it's
raw
so good.
filmmaking and performance.
Yeah.
It's a real movie. But yeah, you got it's interesting how many like images get wrung out of the first movie with like relatively little going on for like set pieces. I mean, because like the blowing up the glass in that restaurant. I don't know. I want to say it feels small even then because it's just I feel like things have just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. It probably felt more explosive in the 90s than it would today.
Another thing about that shot that I was just thinking about that kind of tipped me off at the beginning. I was like, in a regular movie, like he'd bust through the glass and like be running, and everybody would have their guns out. They didn't do that.
Yeah, because everybody was too stunned by what had just happened, like they would be.
Yeah, exactly. And probably they were like, well, this is like a public place. We don't need to just start like unloading bullets in the street. It's like, we'll get this guy.
We'll get him later. We'll find him.
I do think that I should have tipped me off, and I didn't want to believe it. Was when we were in the. Was it the embassy? Is that the first setting?
The first setting is the embassy.
So when we were in there, I clocked, like, as we're looking around, there sure are a lot of people making eye contact with us. Like, there sure are a lot of people looking directly at us, like watching and observing way more closely than they should.
Boy, there's a lot of bad
around that
ads in the
restaurant.
background looking at the camera.
They go around in the restaurant and they show us, hey, all of those people that you clocked looking at you, they sure were. And I was like, that's a coincidence. Like, this isn't a serious movie. They're not giving you things you can pick up on.
And then later it breaks down how all of the evidence mounted for this was actually the guy and this is what was going on. You're like, oh, never mind.
I was like,
was
oh wow, I
serious.
should have believed them. Like, it was crazy. That I think, but I think because I was expecting schlocky action film, I was like, that's a fake out.
Yeah.
This is the one thing that they did, and then the rest
This is
of
the
it's
one piece of effort, and it's all gonna fall apart
Yep,
after this.
yeah.
They're not gonna bother after this. They've tricked us into thinking it's a good movie. Now they don't have to bother.
Yep.
I like, a lot of stuff in this movie, but I do want to make fun of, because you can't talk about the first Mission Impossible movie without making fun of one of the funniest isolated internet movies in a movie that isn't like Hackers from the mid-90s when no one knows how the internet works. Joey, do you want to even attempt to explain what was happening in that scene?
It's like
Max.com.
It's like
Max.com is the funniest
Max.com.
part. That's like the rest of it's like just like funny, but Max.com is like laugh out loud.
It's a Neanderthal trying to operate a computer. It's like they're not on Google, they're on what is essentially, it looks like a login screen, and he's just typing in, I gotta find
Max and job 314.
And it's like, and he's just typing in, like 314, and then it's like does not compute or whatever it says. It's not even that it open, because a few times he'll type in something and it's like, please narrow your search. There's 100 options, but it's like other things. He's like he types in job or job,
and there's just nothing.
and it says there is nothing.
There definitely would have been a file that contained the word job somewhere in the
I'm
IMF
looking for
records.
somebody named Max. Max.com. Enter. We were dying. It was so funny.
Something about job 314. Maybe they're using a Bible message board to talk about. I'm going to send emails to every Max
single.
at job 314 or G318 on every single Bible message board, and maybe I'll find the other spy.
in the languages of the board.
Well, that's just to show you that he's
he's
that that much of a good super spy.
Yeah.
Because he's just a very skilled guy.
God,
Yeah.
I implore you, if nothing else, go find that scene on YouTube.
It's on YouTube.
So
you can
funny.
look up like MI1 like internet scene on YouTube. And
It has to
it'll
be
come up.
with the greatest of early internet usage. Nobody knows what they're doing. A hacker, I'm in, kind of things.
Exactly. There was some good. I forgot that there was some good dialogue when Vig Rhames first showed up. There was some choice internet hacker dialogue,
Yeah.
but it was very quick.
It was.
So it was
But
just it was textural. It,
It was
wasn't like
enough.
a whole scene.
I like perked my ears up. I'm like, he doesn't know what he's talking about.
He has no idea what he's saying right now. That's pretty funny. It's good that he doesn't know what he's saying. That's entertaining. I do really like that in a movie of constant double crossing and spycraft that like the one guy it turns out he can trust is a random dude who had nothing to do with it that he picked up midway through.
Yeah.
He needed to go completely outside of all of this, and he just randomly found a guy who will, as it turns out, be like his lifelong friend.
He's a good guy.
When he showed up in the second movie, we were all like, yeah!
There he is. He stepped in manure with his $800 Gucci shoes.
And later on, he ruined his Versace vest.
They shot his vest, but somehow didn't hit him. Somehow he put a hole in his jacket, but not in him. That's crazy.
They just got the shoulder. That's okay.
But yeah, John Voight as the team leader who seemingly gets shot at the beginning, then tumbles off of a bridge and disappears. And they do the fake out also. They do a dream sequence where he comes back.
Yeah, they do.
So they double fake you out that he's going to come back in
Yeah.
the movie. But no, I like that in the sequence where he gets shot, like Ethan is on the bridge in time to see him hit the water, and there is no shooter.
Yeah.
There's no one else on the bridge when he
Yeah.
gets there. Like, he gets there in time to see him go over the side and see the ripples, and there's no one there.
Once I saw him go over the side the way he did, I was like, that was in my brain. I was like, it's him, right?
Well, see,
He's
and
gonna
I
come
think
back.
that's why I didn't want to buy anything because it looked weird, and I was like, they're not even taking the time to make that look real, like it's a schlocky action, and then it turns out that's part of the.
Is that it was a schlocky, poorly done fake job that we see from the wide angle, and you're like, this is embarrassing, John Voight. It's taking you that long to put the fake blood on your hands, dude. Come on, this is like taking like 7 minutes here.
Yeah.
I was watching this time. I was like, God, he's really like camera craned up, doing stuff with his hands for a really long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's just like a great building sense of dread throughout that entire sequence. After is it Emilio Estevez? Am I crazy? I'm gonna double check that as the guy who gets killed by the horror elevator the way those spring out, it's like something out of like an alien movie.
Yeah, it was.
Right.
It absolutely
It's like a xenomorph was trying to kill him.
It felt like Final Destination,
Especially
a movie
like
I've never seen before.
the last silver one that like goes through his face. I
Yeah.
was like, oh my god.
That's like such a sudden escalation because I guess the movie hasn't started yet. Really, like you don't know what
Yeah.
it's willing to do. But when that happens, you're like, oh, I didn't know that was on the
Yeah.
table for this movie.
And this once again confirmed a conversation we had
wasn't
months
Emilio Estevez.
ago where I was trying to describe a scene, and it's like there's some movie I saw that had somebody getting fake out crushed in an elevator like this, and I was like, is this going to be the movie? And then it's like you saw the spike go into his head, and it's like, okay, no, he's like dead.
he's dead.
He's dead.
There's no question.
Because there's some movie I saw in a theater one time where that happens, except. And it's like, oh no, he died. But then you get like a flashback later on. It's like, oh, he actually survived that. But then somebody was like waiting up there with a gun and just shoots him. So
Oh geez.
No, in this,
and I
like
was
they
like,
have
is
like
this
a,
this movie?
I assume like
I
a
still don't know what that movie is.
I assume they have like a silicon double of him or something because it's a short shot, but like
Yeah.
they leave
But it
in
was
like
effective.
you see 2 frames of his head starting to deform as it hits,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
just enough to make your stomach squelch a little bit before it
Yeah.
cuts
Yeah.
away.
Also, I mean, and this is a nitpick. It's like I think he could have like just like
Could have moved his head a little. He could lay down.
I think he could have laid on his back and not gotten impaled. But
He
I guess,
definitely could have
But I
avoided
guess
it.
that's what those spikes were there for. It was to convey. It's like he couldn't have done anything about it. I guess.
Why did John Voight like know that those like that was part of his plan? He was like, only in this embassy in Prague will I have the ceiling spikes in the elevator shaft necessary.
He set him
to
up
kill-
there.
to
He
kill
went
Emilio
up there and made
Estevez.
him himself.
Absolutely.
He just installed some spikes.
What even would the purpose of those be?
There's no purpose.
None.
It's total nonsense.
They put him up there to kill people.
Put him up there to kill spies trying to break into the embassy.
Yeah, if there's intruders on the elevator.
God, that's its own movie right there. It's like the embassy is actually just filled with
Booby
booby
traps?
traps the whole time.
No, it turns into like what's a movie like Don't Breathe or whatever. It's a horror movie in
Yeah.
an embassy that's just full of like constant death traps. Yeah, and there's very little action in it. No car chases, no nothing. It's mostly simmering tension and
I guess
and quiet.
you can't call a train and helicopter chase a car chase.
I mean that is like the most straightforward action
Yeah.
in the film. The
Yeah,
final
but
sequence is definitely an action.
Yeah, it's the
sequence.
conclusion though, so they had to go bombastic with it.
Even there though, it's not like he doesn't ever punch John Voight. Like they don't have a fist fight on top of a train, which does happen later in this series.
I believe it.
But like it's like the action is whoa, Tom Cruise is really getting blown around there.
Yeah.
really getting flopped
And it's
around
like,
on this train.
I guess it's because it was a bullet train and not a regular train. You can get away with that, or not get away with that more. But it's like movies over the years, because we love seeing fights on trains. Like they really detract with how jarring that would actually be. Mm-hmm. It's like you see movies and games and stuff. People just get up there and they're just standing and they're like, whoa, but then they're
Gotta
doing
dodge
their own-
some signs every now and then.
Yeah, it's like this movie made you really feel it's like, oh man, yeah, no, he could just like get blown away right
Yeah.
there. It was very
It was honestly watching it. I was again impressed by like I know that is a stage with they're on top of a train set and they built a wind tunnel,
yeah.
and I was still impressed by how visceral it felt. Like
It looked good, too.
It's a pretty good like composite footage they've got in the background, and there's also like a lot of angles. Like it wasn't just like your like kind of like side scroller shots like you have when he like kind of flips down the train. You have that upward angle looking down from the helicopter, and it's like no, that's absolutely still them on that set, still getting blown by a wind tunnel fan. I was like really looking at that scene this time around. I was like trying to not be impressed by it, if that makes any sense. Like I was trying to view it as like a, where's the problem? At some point
Yeah.
this illusion's gonna fall apart, and it didn't.
No, even as you were like, we were watching it and you were telling us, and I was like, where? Like, I also could not see it.
Of course, it completely goes into implausibility when the helicopter goes into the tunnel.
Yeah.
But who cares? Because at
That's
that
fine.
point, it's like silly. It's because you're laughing with the movie at that
Yep.
point.
And listen, he's even though it leaned into more this mentality more in the second movie, it's like that guy was a professional. He was a super spy at
Yeah.
one point. He's disavowed.
He was
but
disavowed.
was.
He's a
That
super
just
spy
means he's
helicopter
an even
pilot.
better super spy.
He made
'cause
it-
He's
he
having
made
to
it-
spy on the super
Exactly.
spies.
He made a joke when they were asking him about his capability. He said something about he was Fort Knox. He said, "I can fly my helicopter straight through the door," and we
Yeah.
can. So he even set up, "I can fly a helicopter through narrow spaces." That was
Yeah.
technically in the script. They justified it. He's got the skill necessary. When he tries to kill Ethan with the blades
That
of
was
the
stupid.
helicopter.
That was silly.
That's the funniest thing. And then even after he's dead, the remains of the helicopter do the barely almost hitting his neck thing.
Yeah, it blows up, and the moment it blows up, that's when they decide to stop the train.
Does that
That's
like
the moment. They're like, okay, stop the train. It's on fire now.
does the Tom Cruise almost getting stabbed by something and like painfully like lingering proximity of sharp things to him? Does that happen in all the movies or just these first
It
two?
happens in a couple of them, but you want to know something fun about that knife scene in MI2 where the bad guy almost stabs him in the eye?
Did he actually like cut his eye?
Didn't cut his eye. They said normally you would do that like the reverse of what I'm about to describe, but basically he was like, I want the downward thrust. I want the shot of it coming down with as much force as possible toward me and me stopping it at the last second. So they measured a metal cable so that it could not go further than where it gets
my
in that shot. So
God.
the actor could come at Cruise with full force
velocity and just get
Cruise could
pulled
stop
back.
it, and it would not go any further than it could not physically go further and hit Cruise in the
That's
eye.
Oh,
crazy. That's
Jesus.
so crazy. Oh my god.
No. Cable snap, dog. Absolutely not.
So again, like something we were making fun of Dwayne the Rock Johnson earlier for his
Yeah.
like, I have a clause in my contract where I can't lose fights because it'll make me look weaker. I guess we didn't mention that specific. We were making fun of him earlier, but no, there's
Oh, yeah,
supposedly
yeah.
he's got a thing in his contracts where I'm like, I can't lose fights. I gotta. You can't be a real action hero
Every tussle.
without taking your lumps.
No.
you got to crawl
Yeah.
through the glass.
Yeah.
To beat the guys.
It's also kind of a meta thing, but it ruins it at that point because it's like you see him and it's like nothing can ever touch him.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this man can face no consequences.
It's true.
It's so stupid.
Yeah.
But
that's
I'm
kinda
just
lame.
Cruise doesn't. I mean, he doesn't like reach Jackie Chan levels of getting like the snot beat out of him in these
Yeah.
movies most of the time. I say that there is one scene in 5 where he's like it's early on in the movie. He's tied up and people are just beating the crap out of him, and he has to be helped out of the situation.
I mean, he took a decent amount of lumps.
Yeah, he does. He
yeah,
does.
like I mean, it's not like he's not winning every fight.
No, it's
you
true.
know?
There's, I want to talk. I was mainly thinking about this about the ending of 3. I don't want to get into it, but at the ending of 3, it like maybe we'll watch it and talk about it sometime. It seems like the movie is over. And and Cruise just got the victory, but for reasons that will make sense when and if you watch it, like the reins get completely handed over to somebody else, And it's like that is completely the correct move for the movie at that moment. And it is the most exciting thing that could have happened.
Okay.
And I can just see like somebody else who like doesn't get it being like, but how about we rearrange this and let that character have their moment before my big moment where I defeat the bad guy.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, no, it is this other moment is made more exciting because you thought the movie was over.
Yeah.
But anyway, so general verdict on Mission Impossible 1. Pretty good, I think.
Yeah, big thumbs up. That was great.
Watching it again,
Definitely
I was
better than expected.
Watching
Like,
it again,
not
I
just
was-
good, better than expected.
I really was like surprised by how much I was enjoying it, having not watched it in a couple of years, because it's pretty different from the rest of the franchise, and certainly
Yeah.
it's very different from the second movie.
Yeah.
One thing I was surprised by, and again, actually that's another item. I was going to say just that I was it really did. It does feel so zany at the ending with the bullet train and the helicopter. Something that stood out in the score was that movie is like not a ton of music in the first place, but it's like you're using the original Mission Impossible theme, and other than that, it's like gloomy and scary.
Yeah.
When he leaps onto the helicopter after John Voight, right? I in my brain, I remembered that the second he jumps off, it goes from the suspense music to the Mission Impossible theme because he's back in control and he's about to blow it up and jump off, right? I forgot that when he first grabs onto it, it does a huge swell of like standard heroic action music, and I'm like, that feels completely incorrect for this film. I don't know if you guys even noticed that, but it stood out to me that I was like, that felt like odd.
I do feel
funny.
like I remember noticing something at that point, but I don't know that I clocked that that's what it was. I think I just like something. Now that you're bringing it up again, I am remembering feeling weird.
It was just like standing. It stood out to me as like a movie that's like just super duper cohesive and consistent in what it's trying to do visually and tonally. That then it descends into action set piece at the end. Not that it's not even a bad one because it's so funny, and so insane that you kind of like you just like have to go along with it.
Yeah.
But that was what for some reason I was like already willing to accept. I know that the CGI helicopter in the tunnel is going to happen. I just got to put up with it. But for some reason that music cue jumped out at me. I don't know why. But so Mission Impossible 1, good.
Yes.
Mission Impossible 2 verdict.
still good,
Good,
but good really
but
differently.
It's good, like italicized.
Opposite end of the spectrum. Good.
It's okay.
I don't know about opposite.
We talk about the post that you sent me, the anti-schlock. Stop using anti-schlock language.
Instead of saying it's so bad it's good, it's saying anybody who doesn't like this movie is stupid.
That I felt that with this movie this is a very simplified version, but it's like the first movie you watch and you're like, this is a good movie that I can say is a good movie. The second one is like I had a lot of fun watching this movie, but
Yeah.
it doesn't hold a candle to the first one as far as like it's not as competent, but I had a lot of fun, and there is a lot of fun to be had in it.
I had a moment where not even a moment. I wanted to check the numbers on this. The budget for the first film was $80 million.
Okay.
And then the next film was 4 years later, and the budget was $120 million.
Okay.
And something that stands out to me is that the second film looks cheaper.
Yes.
I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
you disagree. I think it probably has more to do, honestly, with like this like. It's probably different even film stock. It just has a totally different look to the lighting and
Yeah.
the vibe. But like, I didn't talk about this during the movie really. But did you notice like during the final action sequence, the final chase sequence in MI2 is like, well, first of all, the biochemical lab on the island is like,
yeah.
it's like a World War II bunker or something.
Yeah,
it's
and
just like sitting there.
It's grimy and there's
Yes.
like it's basically just dudes in like a sewer. But it's like this is a lab, and what the conference room that they were in was also just like a back room.
concrete,
just like a concrete
floor and
bunker.
walls,
They did.
yeah.
There was no like fluorescent lights or anything. Everything was dirty.
The actual lab where they make the super virus like was probably the most like, okay, this is like a set they built room in the film, and I compared it to like the queue for the Universal Studios Spider-Man ride.
It was
Yeah.
so dark too. I think that was the thing that really like stood out to me as like, this is a movie set, because I feel like anywhere that you are
was
handling a deadly virus, you want lighting.
It was a
And
very-
it was such a dark
It was
room.
a sci-fi movie set. You know what I mean? This was on an alien spaceship. Or not an alien spaceship, but you know what I mean. This was on a far-flung future spaceship.
Yeah.
And they're doing things that you can't understand because it's so far in the future.
I also kept trying to place the guy like that injects himself with the virus at the very beginning.
I don't know.
What
Did you
do
look him up or?
I didn't.
Okay, I don't know. I'm not
Okay.
sure. I didn't look him up either.
What
I checked a couple of the cast members. I forgot to
brilliant
check
plan
in.
on that guy's part.
What a brilliant plan on that guy's part. He was smuggling the virus out so it could be studied at the Center for Disease Control, Joey.
Yeah, okay. So to do that, he's going to get himself in a public transport.
Listen, it's got to be,
Planes have delays, Jacob.
It's
I've
only
been in planes that have been delayed. If that
only-
plane had been delayed,
It's
he
only
would've-
transmitted by blood, I guess.
They never they don't tell you anything.
They don't tell you anything about it. That's unimportant.
The information you get from the virus is that after 20 hours, it can't be cured. And
Yep, you're
And it's
dead.
also-
made from strains of influenza being
and
combined.
it is contagious, but it's not contagious, presumably until 20 hours.
Maybe you have to die first, and then people are like, "Ooh, dead body," and if they touch you,
Ooh.
then they get it.
Yeah,
I guess
because he
so, yeah.
got on a whole like commercial airplane and he felt safe to do that. It was just like, you can transport me however you need to.
For better or
Like-
for worse, I think not the Tom Cruise scene, but the beginning of the movie where it's his recording where he's talking about about the Bellerophon and the Chimera and stuff. That really set the tone for the rest of the movie, where it's like, oh, this is schlock.
Yes, you got like when in the scene where Tom tricks him into shooting his henchman, like it is like opera, like it's the most important thing that's ever happened. That this goon who the villain doesn't even care about was shot in a concrete room with no fluorescent lighting
In the lab.
This is the most important thing that's ever happened in a movie.
And he realized his mistake because he saw the cast on his pinky finger that he cut with a
He
cigar
cut it
cutter.
and then he screams. He goes, "Ah!" It's like if
My
if you saw
friend!
that movie out of context, you'd think like he'd just been tricked into killing his brother or
Yeah.
something.
And it's extra funny. Like they imply it's like, well, what you call it? The girl is just like, and I can't remember her name, but it's okay because I don't feel like the movie respected her anyway.
No, it
enough
really
for me to
didn't.
remember the name. But she's just like,
Naya,
I didn't-
maybe?
Yeah.
Naya, and Naya's just like. There's like 12 guys or whatever, and it's like I only recognize this guy. It's implying that they are friends, they're close.
But then he just constantly abuses him.
he constantly abuses him, and he uses a cigar castrator on his finger for like pointing out the obvious about, hey man, you probably shouldn't trust this girl.
But he's like,
He's
nah,
like,
man.
I know, I'm gonna take your pinky off now.
Nah, man, you listen, man, I don't know.
That
I know
was such a weird sequence.
It was.
because his reasoning, our super smart spy villain is just like, listen, dude, you don't understand, okay? I know it's probably a bad idea, but I want to have sex.
Yeah,
please,
literally.
you don't understand. I need it. And you
I'm
think if
willing
you're
to
listening
take
to me-
risks to get laid once
If you're
or twice.
listening to me, you may think I'm exaggerating, but
He's
this is an
not.
actual plot point.
As
If
the
you've
woman
not
in the
seen this
room,
movie-
he's not.
If you haven't seen this movie, that's real. He's just like, what does he say? I'm gagging for it.
Yes. No. Specifically, he says when she left you, she wasn't exactly gagging for it. And then later, when justifying, I don't care if she's a spy because I'm gagging
gagging
for it.
No, that was.
And to be fair, she was very attractive.
You know that, right?
What's our peanut gallery comment?
Dying for a crumb of pussy is probably the most believable part of it.
This is true. You know, Spencer back there in the corner, he's got a good point. There was not much of the movie that was believable, but men will do some stupid things.
They sure will.
Steve Harvey said it best. That gang. I'm not. That's.
So you talking about her not getting a lot, the character Naya not getting a lot of respect in this movie?
There's a lot of like women, am I right? In this movie.
I was gonna say, I think to be completely fair, all the women, am I right, is mostly done by the villains who
But
we are
it's-
not supposed to like. Like
but it's
Tom
all-
Cruise mostly treats her respectfully.
He does, but
By the standard, by the movie's lens at
but the
least, he
first
treats her
time-
respectfully.
I want
Yeah.
to say the first instance of it was his boss.
Oh
Was
yes,
Mr. Cruise's
yes.
boss.
Hannibal is in this for 2
Yes.
seconds, and yes, he does say, "Oh, she shouldn't have a hard time sleeping with him and lying to him. She's
That's
a
in
woman."
She's a woman.
Yes.
That's in her nature.
Fantastic.
Uh,
Am I right, gamers? Am I right, fellas?
She doesn't need any more.
Aidan, you know how it is, right? You know how it is.
yeah, woman.
Anyway, but no, like that's and talking about like, she apparently really did not like being in this movie, and nothing to do with her character or the performance, but apparently this was like a really miserable set. Like not just for her, but for kind of everybody. But this was the first time.
Really?
I forget the actress's name. She's been in a bunch of other stuff. She was in as like a teenager, a really, really good like coming of age dramedy that's obviously an Australian film because she's Australian, called Flirting, which I highly recommend, by the way. There's no, like, there was a DVD print of it in the year 2000 when all of the, backlog DVD prints happened, and there's not been another one since then.
Sick.
And as far as I know, it's not on any streaming services. I literally watched the whole thing on YouTube because apparently nobody cares.
Nice.
Interesting.
But she's in a ton of other stuff. She was in Pursuit of Happiness. She was she was in 20 years older than here, but she is Woody Harrelson's love interest in Solo: A Star Wars Story.
Oh.
The one member of most of all of Woody Harrelson's gang, spoiler alert, doesn't make it out of that movie. They die in like the opening act. That's kind of like the inciting incident of the film, but she's in that for a little bit. But no, apparently, you have a lot of issues when you have like these Hong Kong guys come over and make movies in the States because Jackie Chan is one that I know more about because I've watched a couple of his Hong Kong movies now. And if you go and watch his American stuff, you're like, these directors and these writers are completely letting him down in terms of what he is capable of.
Okay.
Like they are not shooting him correctly to emphasize what he is capable of. They are editing around the deficiencies of the other stuntmen who are working with him who cannot keep up with him, et cetera, et cetera. John Woo, for one thing, we're working with a guy who is a blood and guts, R-rated, squibs everywhere director, and this is a PG-13 movie with no blood and no gunshots until like the last 30 minutes of the film. But apparently, he refused to work in English on the set.
Oh, God.
Apparently, I mean, I don't know how good his English is. I've seen some interviews with him. He can speak English like okay, but apparently, like he's like, no, I need to work like, in Chinese, like my native language with my crew. So he like wasn't giving the actors active direction. It was through like intermediaries and Tom Cruise like figuring it out on set. And apparently she was like borderline having like panic attacks shooting some of these scenes because she had no idea what the hell she was supposed to be doing.
Oh, great.
And she talked about, there's an anecdote where she talked about like Tom Cruise like tried to help me out. I think it was like during the balcony scene with like the fire thing in the background. She's like, he tried to help me out because I was having a hard time and it just did not help, where he was like, let's just improvise for a little bit. Let's you play me and I play you and let's just like work through this. And she was like, I felt like I was losing my mind. So yeah, like, I mean, she makes it out at the end of this movie and they're together at the end. I don't know if there was like an intent for her to come back or not, but she had no interest in coming back, I think, after this. I will say, I'm not going to be like, the Mission Impossible franchise, feminist masterpieces or anything.
Yeah.
I think there are 3 films in this now 8-film saga that pass the Bechdel test. Well, no, that's not even true. That's fine. That's not fair because there's a briefing at the beginning of the first one. There's multiple members of the women team, and they talk about things other than men. So actually, probably they're not actually that bad on the Bechdel test. Now I'm thinking about it, maybe not. But the point is, maybe not like at least compared to like James Bond, where like the women are all like disposable. These movies tend to have a little bit more respect for them than that. I'm not going to say that there aren't any women who bite it in these movies.
Yeah, well, I mean, and even to Tom Cruise's, to Ethan Hunt's credit, when he finds out that the reason that we've procured this woman for the team is just to use her to sleep with the bad guy,
he's really upset
like,
about that.
I thought we were getting her because she's a good thief. Because she's a good thief,
and it's hard.
And they take the time to establish her as a good thief. They take the time to tell you, no, it wasn't that you tripped the alarm.
And a good driver,
I set the alarm
when
off.
she remembers to
Look at the
look at the
road.
road.
I feel like that was a missed opportunity with her, where I figured
She should have stolen something. At
I
some
figured
point.
the climax
sure.
would be her stealing like the virus. Or
She
something.
should have at some point outwitted the bad guy by stealing something.
Like everything at the horse races, whatever you call that.
She did the pickpocket
Yeah,
stuff,
it's
but
like
that wasn't enough.
That worked. Yeah, exactly. But
And then
that's,
she
that's
put
like,
it back in the wrong pocket. Amateur
Yeah.
mistake.
I do like. I mean, I think that's a fun I think that's a fun movie mistake, like for a way for him to know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
It's like she should have done more with her thievery.
Yeah.
But it's also like I talked about these films. All these movies are exercises in filmmaking more so than they are like I'm really engaged with the script. Even the
Right.
first one, which I think is like we just discussed, is I think it's fairly well written. it's still very much an exercise in style.
Yes.
This MI2 in particular is like so stylistic.
Yeah.
That was what I was talking about with like, no, didn't you see those two cars like spin around and it went slow motion? They looked in each other's eyes and you're like, whoa, they're like kissing and they're sleeping together now. They're in love. Yeah. Didn't you watch the scene?
They looked at each other and they were like, "You're cool."
Didn't you see the filmmaking that was going on? And like, and again, they just stuff like her putting it back in the wrong pocket is a very like, is very visual. Him being able to go my right pocket, like it's a lot of stuff like that where it's very big. It's all big movements and big ideas and big camera moves. Everything is communicated through the slow motion of her scarf flying off, and he reaches out and
that was probably one of the worst. Like
grabs the scarf. Nothing's happening.
I will say they did. I don't know if it was super intentional, but they sure accomplished the goal of making you feel like the bad guys were icky.
Oh, I'm sure that was the goal. I'm sure that was the goal. I mean, they're not in like the 70s here. This is the year 2000. I think these guys are meant to be gross.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, they sure met that goal.
There is an angle where you're wondering, like, is Tom Cruise upset that she's doing this because he slept with her and he likes her, and now he's like, no, she's gonna sleep with another guy, and I don't like that. But
I was afraid that they were gonna go for that angle, but they never explicitly.
No, I think especially the first movie frames it as like this dude is like such a professional. I mean, like, he's, he cares about things. He's a good guy. He doesn't want to let bad stuff happen, but, like, he's not, he understands the game, so to speak.
And he's so good at shooting people, as we learn in the second movie.
He does learn in the second movie. He points guns at people in the first one, but he never shoots anybody.
But
They count how many bullets they have for the two guns they have, and they never use them.
Nope. But he shoots a lot of people.
He shoots a lot of people in the second one. A lot of possibly the same guy. We're not sure. We didn't go. This is what I'm talking about. Where I'm the movie seems cheaper to me because they just use just this bunker that we can shoot in, I guess, and like the goons are like, I don't know if you noticed this, like one of them is just wearing like a red sweater, and they're just like a very mismatched dress. Like these guys do not look like a goon squad. They don't look intimidating, and they're all at the ending. They're driving. This is more a perspective. I mean, I think like you can pick up on it anyway, but there's a another YouTube channel Mr. Sunday Movies that did videos talking about these, and they're two Australians, and they were talking about like all the cars in this chase scene are like your dad's car, or that guy. They're all like hatchbacks.
Yeah,
they're all just like they're not like a fleet of consistent black cars. It's like, here's this beige 4-seater that we're gonna blow up with a grenade launcher and flip off of a bridge.
It really felt like you could really tell they were picking these cars because they were disposable.
Yeah,
like we're gonna destroy these things, so we don't want to pay too much. for them.
But my point is,
even
like,
though
that's,
this was a high budget film, which is so strange,
because that is a B movie thing where you notice, oh, that car's gonna blow up. That car looks a lot dirtier than all the other cars in this movie. I wonder what's gonna happen to it. But anyway, there isn't, that is a thing where there's not a lot of action in that John Woo movie, but the action that we do have, boy howdy.
It's action, all right.
Lots
of action.
Why don't you guys tell me about the action in this film?
I can't say I'm super familiar with John Woo's works myself, but it's like after watching this, I feel like I get an idea of the movies. Like I feel like not slow-mo, but there's a lot of like zoom in to begin very intense moments. There's a lot of over-the-top acrobatics, which Tom Cruise does some really nice, really choice flips in this that are really funny. He prefers his feet
were some
for
of
most
those slow-mo, some of those flips.
No, there's no specific when he's escaping with the vials after he's stolen the guy's leather jacket so he can look cool during the motorcycle chase. He is running, and possibly a goon that he threw off a cliff a few minutes ago, we're not sure, is coming up shooting at him, and he jumps like past. Looks like a concrete mixer or something. And he because again, it's just like the junk that's sitting around. Like, I didn't have time to clear the set. He jumps and does like a somersault and shoots while he's flipping. And that was all like multiple shots of him doing that in slow motion.
Yeah.
No, what stands out to me, there's definitely John Woo hallmarks all over this,
and
but like
of course, the last encounter, Jesus.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second.
God.
I would say that like Hard Boiled and The Killer are like, I mean, there's definitely slow motion stuff in there, but they tend to be like, where like they're ramping speed. Like, here is a fast shot that ramps to slow motion on something crazy happening and then ramps back to normal speed. There was a lot of slow motion in this, and I'm wondering if like they just didn't have the time to do the crazy bullet ballet, like the intensity, the level that those movies get to. Because compared to his other work, believe it or not, this feels tame and imprecise at the ending.
You also said that it was a PG-13 movie compared to R. So
I think that probably has something to do with it. But there's like it's odd because like it feels like if you aren't familiar with his work, if you're just watching it, because again, like I said, aside from like you've gotten some flourishes, like the weird romantic car chase and the spinning around slow motion and catching a scarf in slow motion, like there's weird stylistic vibes all over the place. But until Tom Cruise flips over and drops kicks that guy as we're breaking into the climax, like you don't know that the movie's gonna go there.
Yeah.
You don't know that it's gonna get to two guys jumping off of opposing motorcycles and slamming into each other like action figures in the air and flying off a cliff.
This does feel very much like that Chris Redfield scene.
Oh no!
You're gonna just jump off and shoot people. Okay.
Oh no!
Wait, where the hell did they? Yeah. Ignore the other two that he had strapped to himself.
God, it gets so nitpicky and sloppy at the end too. I mean, there's a lot of that throughout the movie, but I'm not even like I'm thinking of things between the combat where it's like it's the whole like the bad guy that he puts the mask on while he has his mask. It's like what he went into.
When
this
did he have
encounter-
time?
When did he have time? It's hard to make prosthetic masks that are like extremely in depth, and he just did it.
The later movies
for a random like I have to imagine for this to make any sense, he had everybody's mask in his bag so that he could.
Well, to be fair, there were only like 3 henchmen as we've established.
Right. Yeah.
He just kept shooting the same guys over and over again. So
They're all
chance.
brothers. It's a bunch of like triplets.
The later movies will establish that IMF agents carry around a suitcase-sized 3D printer that makes the masks.
Sick.
No.
Yes.
Oh god.
But it's like that, and then in the final like 10-minute fight with the bad guy, there's like there's just moments of like what this is a nitpick that I get aggravated a lot by, where it's like you have no reason to not kill this guy other than the movie will stop if you kill him.
Other than if he doesn't kill him right now, then he won't be able to do the cool thing where he kicks the gun out of the sand. This is what I'm talking about. Where like a lot of this movie I feel is a letdown as like a John Woo movie, but that shot where he kicks the ground and the gun flies up out of the sand, and that shot is so insane.
Yeah.
And so awesome.
It is.
And like when they are driving the motorcycles at each other and jump off of the motorcycles, that's like Advent Children shit. It's incredible.
They both mutually decided to do that instead of shooting each other because they both had guns with bullets
sure
still.
Did.
And like they both had the same plan. They both knew that they were gonna do that.
Yeah.
That they were gonna get ripped. They were gonna like flail off of their motorcycles, lifted off of them by wires.
And it's like I suppose you can do that in these movies if you have a hero and a villain that have a mutual respect for each other. If you're going for like a warrior vibe between these two people, but it's like that wasn't there. They just both hated each other.
It feels like there's a missing element to this of like he's the dark version of Ethan because he's an IMF agent.
Yeah,
like he has the same train.
He even wears his face at the beginning.
Yeah, he impersonates him at the beginning to be like, "You keep calling me Dimitri,
but they
you
never
should
do
stop that because I'm bad."
But they never do anything.
No. Well, the only thing they do is when he's like, I know Ethan's plan. But that's more just like a flourish of like, it's fun to intercut it with like, instead of the normal thing of the heroes explaining their plan, like you're intercutting it with the villain predicting what they're going to do when they do it. But like, he didn't need to know that. He just had to know Ethan will be there. So I should go there and kill him. Like there's a real letdown element of this where you feel like it should be like spy versus spy, but he feels like the standard fat cat James Bond villain in his cool Roblox house on the sea, and I want my money. He's not doing crazy spy moves.
Also, I mean, maybe this is, I don't know, silly of me, but I feel like if we're unleashing like crazy mega kill everybody virus for 37 million, that's not
enough
of money.
Especially because he was like, there's gonna be an outbreak tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well, they
you
were
need
gonna-
to get out of Sydney and go
Yeah.
somewhere secluded before then.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the twist was it's like actually we're going to use stocks and we're going to own your company.
I guess to be fair, to be
okay.
completely fair, he would have had access to the vaccine. Like, he didn't actually want a global pandemic to kill everybody. He just wanted to create a need that would
Yes.
drive up all that money. So, like, I guess actually, you know,
But his
some of them would have died, but it
His
was a sacrifice he
plan
was willing to
to
make.
accomplish this was to take patient zero, and he's like, okay, drop her off into city and leave her
And
be.
leave her unsupervised so she
And
can
so-
go and die somewhere else where
so-
she won't infect anybody.
Yeah, so she's like, well, I'm going to die and I don't want to infect people, so I'm just going to go to the cliffs.
Well, but remember, he only has 3 goons, and they all had to come to the money exchange, so nobody could watch
He only
Naya.
has 3 goons and they all share one brain cell.
He had to hope that, like, even if she dies somewhere else, like, a crow will come and eat her and spread the virus, and it's
we
fine.
don't even know that it can infect animals, though.
No, we don't. We don't know anything about
We don't
it.
know anything about the virus.
We don't
so
know anything about that.
It's called Chimera, and its opponent is Bellerophon.
Hence my
Because
joke about
Greek.
Aiden explain the first movie, you have 60 seconds.
Yeah.
Aiden explain the second one, you have 10 seconds. Because nothing is explained. It's all you
It's just
feel
action.
it.
Yeah.
You feel it. Well, again, so there's not a lot of action.
You're right. It's all action at the last half, and then it's
Watching
There's so
this
much
one
action
through.
in the last half that
And then
you
it's
forget that there
nonsense at the
wasn't any
beginning.
in the first.
I think it's really funny, like, that we talked about the first movie. Is like the first movie opens with a briefing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess technically the first movie opens with showing these guys, like, how they do their jobs, right? Because it opens with, you think they're, like, just wiretapping a room, waiting for them to mention something, and you don't realize actually it is a set. They're all in disguise.
Yeah.
Like, they tricked this guy.
Yeah.
And then you move into mission briefing, meeting the team more thoroughly, and then the embassy. And, like, in the equivalent time that they are, like, sneaking into this place, we are like wacky hijinks with like a bass guitar as he's like, hey, do you want to be on top or should I?
Yeah.
Like, that's when I was, again, that was why I was like, watching these two movies back to back is insane.
Yep.
Because, and oh God, you said the funniest thing where you're like, we didn't make that many cracks about Tom Cruise's height during this, but you were like, man, taller actor couldn't have done that bathroom joke where they're both in the tub together.
I am 5'10", which I guess is tall for a woman, I have been told, and I can't stretch out in a tub the way that Tom Cruise stretched out in that
Maybe it was
tub.
that was
there
a
was a
fancy
big tub.
rich person.
There's a fancy rich person tub with your secret jewel vault next to
Yes,
it.
of
I feel
course,
like
right
that
by
would
the
cut
top.
into how long your tub can be if you've got to
Also,
put a
can
whole
we
vault
talk about
next
how
to
insane how insane that room was? Because that wasn't a bathroom. That was just like a living room.
I guess it was just like, it's just, this is my room, don't come in.
This is-
you
this
just
is-
have to knock. It was just like in the middle of his living room.
It was
Yeah.
really funny.
And that's where he puts his vault, because nobody would expect it to be next to the shitter, I guess.
Well, nobody. I didn't even see a shitter. I just saw a
Tub.
bathtub.
Maybe
There might have been a
Maybe
toilet
there was
there.
also, you had to like do a secret hack in a wall to make the
make
toilet
the-
slide
like
out.
come out of the floor.
Yeah, the bathtub sinks down, and the toilet rises up.
Just like,
Oh, it's a revolving wall, so the tub spins away and the toilet
oh, exactly. That way, if you're pooping, if somebody shoots you while you're on the toilet, nobody can get to your jewels.
goes. They just walk to the outside of the house, and now it's on the exterior wall.
There is but no, I was just gonna say, watching the second one, like, I mean, I'm appreciating it. Watching it is like, oh, what a mess.
Yes.
Like, well, there's like so many just like little weird choices in this that I'm enjoying it. But I was like, compared to every other movie in this franchise, like, kind of boring in the middle stretch. It's like, I don't know. I don't know how you guys felt. Like, I watched it. I know where it's going. There was still some fun stuff. Like, I think that the horse race, like, meetup is like sufficiently intense.
Yes.
It's a sufficiently suspenseful, I guess I should say. But it's just like, it's not nail biting like all the way through like the first one is, because it's a little too goofy and a little too,
Yeah.
slow-mo gazing into each other's eyes. Like, it's trying to be sexy, like, in its filmmaking itself, and it's not really working. I want to talk about Tom Cruise's hair,
Okay.
because his hair evolves a lot over the course of this series.
All right.
I think if you, like, when they're showing everybody's personnel files at the beginning of the movie, if you're like really keyed in, you can notice that that Ethan is like former U.S. Army. So presumably he was in the military for a couple of years, and then he got pulled over into Secret Services.
Okay.
And that makes sense to me in terms of like the way he's built and kind of like what his role is on the team, and the hair that he has.
Yeah.
Definitely feels like, former military guy. And then second movie, he has evolved into sex icon.
Yeah.
Into I want to be able to, when I'm whipping around during an action sequence and Wu is shooting me in slow motion, I want it to look as ridiculous as possible as all of my hair whips in front of my eyes, so I couldn't
Yes.
possibly see what I'm doing.
I noticed that in the driving sequence, I think was when it was the worst. When both of them, like her long feminine hair is just free flowing while you're driving very fast in a sports car. Like your vision is covered for a second, you are crashing.
Which, I mean, almost happened to her, to be fair.
Yep, sure did. Didn't even have to look away from the road for that crash. It was just her hair in the way.
There was a lot of funny car stuff in this, because obviously the funniest was the two cars next to each other and they're locking eyes. But later in the movie, when he's on the motorcycle, how many times does he do the wanted maneuver where he like stops and spins and shoots and then turns around and keeps going?
I would
felt
say
like
at
that was
least.
like
I would
3
say
or
at
4
least 3 times.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair, the first time he does it, they show it to us from about 17 different angles, so it feels like it happened more than it did.
I think that bothered me less than the just like still looking straight ahead but shooting behind
That was
me.
he was looking in the
at the
rearview mirror. He was there was
I
there was
missed
there
that.
was there was
I missed that
there was an
entirely.
insert shot on the rear view to show that he's so good that he can
can
use
do
the
it.
rear view mirror and do it. Yeah.
I missed that
he's
entirely.
just that good.
So he can
Jeez.
kind of keep his eyes on the road while shooting. He's so good.
I
He's
love
such
the
a
part
cool
where he
spy.
almost hits the Avis truck, and you really think like, "Oh, this is so intense." He's about to slide underneath, and it's like,
And he
no, he
goes-
just turned left.
Yeah,
he
he
just
just
turned
goes-
left and didn't run into
It's like it felt like such a wet blanket.
This is what I'm
shot.
talking about, where like things about the second movie that feel cheap compared to the first one we were talking about. Like there's like so many little throwaway details. Like for example, like the thing that really makes the aquarium blowing up is that
Is
when
the
you have that
fish.
shot of him running out across the courtyard, is that it's not just water. It's like that there are like hundreds, maybe like probably like 100 like fake fish in there that you can see falling out, and that makes the
Yep.
shot.
Agreed.
It makes the whole thing feel so much more physical and connected to the rest of that sequence. And then like. And then these guys are all driving like used cars, and when they crash into other cars, it's at a used car dealership.
And they all just explode into fireballs the whole time at the smallest inconvenience.
Anyway.
Except for the 18-wheeler. That thing just cleaved it in half.
It's true. So one thing I want to hear final thoughts from you guys before we wrap this up. But I wanted to throw one more thing back to you, Joey, because I walked back in. I had to step out for a second. I missed the opening scene of the first movie, and I missed the opening credits as well.
Yeah.
And what I realized when I walked back in, I heard you saying something like "that was insane," or "that was like," or like they don't make them like they used to, or
They don't
something
make
like
them
that.
like they used to. Yeah.
I heard you saying something, and I thought you were talking about the opening scene because I forgot about the opening credits, and then movies don't do opening credits anymore. So, Joey, why don't you tell me about the opening credits?
The opening credits of the first movie is really funny because it is a relic of the time, because it is you're hearing the classic theme, really bombastic. You know, everybody's heard the dun 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 dun, dun that one, but it's constantly. It's like it doesn't linger on a shot for more than a second. It is cutting and
yeah.
cutting and cutting and turning negative.
It's
Yeah,
not
if you
even-
get a shot for more than a second,
And
it's because
it's
they're turning it
showing
negative.
it's showing scenes that are happening through. It's like an anime opening.
It's a
in the
preview- it's a
sense-
preview
it
for the movie you're
yes,
about
it
to
shows
watch.
scenes that are happening future in the movie, and it's great, but it's so funny.
but
and-
it's so fast that you don't know what's happening unless
But
you've
it's
already
but that's
seen the
it
movie.
adds to it. It's
Exactly.
great.
So it doesn't actually give anything away.
Yeah.
It's just a little. It's just tickling your balls a little bit. It's just a little teaser.
It's funny because I feel like that style of opening would fit more for the second movie than the first, because
And then the
rest-
second movie doesn't have the intercut. It's just the
doesn't.
flames and the.
because it's like it's that opening like sequence is really kind of schlocky, but then the rest of the movie's like pretty subdued and serious.
The credits for the second one had the Chimera and the Bona.
Whatever.
Yeah.
The illustration we see
Uh-huh.
later in the film.
Yep, and I
Beautiful.
in my silly little brain, I was like Trojan horse, and I was like waiting for there to be a Trojan.
No, I
horse
was the vibe that
moment.
I get watching it is the flames and the electric guitar is like is that without any context is like Spartan warrior, manly, the legacy
yeah.
of how intense these men are.
Yeah, I
and
see.
Tom Cruise climbing up the side of this mountain because that's what he does for fun.
Tom
Right.
Cruise is a man.
But no, the entire franchise has really good opening credits sequences. Most of them are more like the first one in terms of showing a lot of scenes, though the second one is still a standout because the electric guitar choice is so like it reminds me of the similar choices made in first Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie.
Yeah.
With the Nickelback song and like it feels like that. It feels like right connected to that. Where it's like, oh wait, this grunge thing, like it's not going away. And like, oh, I guess we can put this in movies now. It's like, no, it's done. It's over. I know that wasn't grunge, but you know what I mean. Like just the vibe of like
feel.
of the adults in the room, of the how do you do fellow kids going, what's hip?
Yep.
What's cool? But anyway, any final thoughts from you guys before we wrap this one up here?
Pigeons. We didn't talk about the pigeons.
Oh, yeah.
There was
'Cause I've not seen pigeons, doves. I haven't seen John Woo films, but I was informed very quickly that this is
a thing.
This is a thing, but once you see pigeons and doves, you start seeing a lot of them for the next like 20 minutes.
Well, no, they're all in there. They're really concentrated in that one sequence.
It's fun.
I guess it's just the only place where pigeons could have plausibly been.
You're right, but it's pigeons until it's a dove with Tom Cruise, but then it's chilling with Tom Cruise, so it's like a spirit animal.
Well, no, I want to point out
And then it gives him away.
I want to point out the one that flies through the flaming door is a CGI dove.
Yes.
They only had like seemed like the one dove for the one shot of him. Because obviously there would like it was mostly pigeons, but the one dove that flies through the flaming door was a CGI dove because that's the John Woo visual.
So much so that it
That's
is
so silly.
bringing it back to the DVD or the Blu-ray, whatever you call this
Loop back
title screen.
to
Looping title screen.
the Tom Cruise Yule log. Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
it's Tom Cruise again staring at the fire, and there are just doves and pigeons or what have you flying the entire time. I've been staring at it for the last hour.
Like I said, I was going to turn it off, and I was like, actually, this is like the perfect DVD menu. Like it's not too busy, but this is just like a nice thing to have in the background to remind us of the experience that we
The
just
loop
had.
isn't even too intense. Like
No, it's not.
you can see where the cut is, but I've seen much worse cuts.
It's not as distracting as some DVDs. So certainly, I've seen worse DVD menus that just like you can't leave them on because it's obnoxious. But yeah, I don't know if we will necessarily do more discussions of these movies in particular. We may because I like them. I think it's a very interesting series, but I'm definitely not. We're not gonna shotgun all the Mission Impossibles.
Cool.
However, I will say I'm gonna release it probably same day this comes out, or maybe I've already released it. Over on our Patreon, I will be putting up a written review of the most recent Mission Impossible film, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, Part 1, which I actually started writing months and months and months ago, like intending it to be, I'm going to do another written review after my The Boy and the Heron written review, and then I got busy and distracted and was having a hard time with it. I went back and finished it recently. It's going to be on our Patreon. There's a link in the description. You do not have to spend money to view this. I use the Patreon. There's a lot of free stuff on there. Like I do a lot of written posts and other things that are just like, stuff that I don't have anywhere else to put it because it's too long for a tweet. And I don't want to make a video. So even if you don't want to support us financially, there's a lot of stuff over there that you can just go read for free, including this movie review. And I intend to try and post more text movie reviews for free more frequently over there. Though there is also paid stuff if you want to go look at it. If you want to take a look, I'm going to try and get more stuff on there soon. I've been meaning to for forever to go and start pulling choice bits from like our various audio tests and like the stuff that we say immediately before and immediately after recordings, and I just haven't gotten to it, but I'm hoping to have a little bit more time to mess with them in the near future. But anyway, next time probably won't be a double feature of Mission Impossible 3 and 4, but I do feel like these movies probably, there's not like a ton to talk about. Honestly, probably double, even if we don't shotgun them, discussion double featuring them might be a decent idea, or we just do shorter discussions. I don't know. But I guess that's it for today. You guys, fun evening.
Yeah,
Fun
Good.
for
movies.
sure.
Those were enjoyable for very different reasons.
Yep.
Alrighty, and we'll do this again sometime soon.